Why U.S. Navy sailors could die horribly if they fall off an aircraft carrier. People think that an aircraft carrier is the most important sea-based asset because it is the center of modern battle fleets and is the only military tool that can send tactical air power over long distances. Do you know how many people are needed on an aircraft carrier to run operations? The answer is more than 6,000, which is a huge number. Even though there are a lot of people on the team, there is still a chance that someone could fall off the aircraft carrier and into the water. What happens when this happens? Let's get started. The answer to the question of whether anyone has ever fallen off an aircraft carrier is a resounding yes, because we already know that safety measures on an aircraft carrier are always very strict and elaborate. To be honest, it's almost impossible for the crew to fall off the aircraft carrier and into the water. However, there have been times when a member of the crew did fall into the water. Imagine what that would be like. A modern aircraft carrier can reach a height of 10 meters. The reason is that, unlike other battleships, the aircraft carrier is built with safety features to prevent accidents. This is because the force of gravity on the sea is the same as on land, and if someone falls into the wrong place, they can die before they can be rescued. At least 50,000 tons of steel plates go into each American aircraft carrier. All of the normal guardrails on the deck would make it impossible to take off or land, so it has guardrails that can be pulled back and are easy to use. Not only does an aircraft carrier have a safety net to keep crew members from falling into the water, but what happens if a crew member jumps off the ship? The deck of the aircraft carrier is built to fit a large takeoff runway and a runway for fighter aircraft. Its main job is to carry these planes, but the crew goes through a lot of training to make sure no one falls into the water by accident. When a crew member falls off an aircraft carrier, what steps are taken? If someone notices that someone has gone overboard, they should call man overboard to the guidance bridge. There is an officer who is in charge of the engines or the control. It is his job to tell the ship to sound an alarm. One thing that is very important and should be kept in mind is that the ship needs to be able to see the person who fell into the water. The ship will turn in that direction even if the person who fell in can't be seen, and a life ring is thrown over the same side to mark where the person went over for navigation purposes. Those who have seen the movie will remember that this turn is when a shipboard rescue is possible and will be tried. In The Guardian, the ship that saw his loss and the Coast Guard cutter tries to find and save it. The main piece of equipment, called Jabbar David, is a simple steel tube bent into the shape of an upside-down letter J that can be swung over the side. It has a recovery strap that lets search and rescue swimmers lower themselves into the water and pull the victim to safety. Once the rudder is in the middle, the ship goes back to where the person fell into the water. This is because the hand churn moves the blades away from the victim and away from where they were. Some sailors lower one or more boats to form a rescue party where the man overboard alarm sounds, but they are not directly involved in rescue efforts. Instead, they gather at their muster stations to be counted, and the muster counts are sent to the bridge, which is in charge of figuring out who is missing from the ship's company and is probably in the water. This information is used as the ship starts its search and rescue operations. Tim Dees, who used to be a police officer but is now retired, talked about some of the things he has seen and done. Once I saw a jet blast blow a Marine over the fantail. Another Marine jumped in after her, and when they hit the water, they both broke a few bones and needed help. They were both wearing flotation devices, and the rescue helicopter that is always close during flight operations picked them up with the help of a man overboard, which was hard work. Tim Dees gave a lot of good information, but the fact is that different types of ships handle the man overboard situation in different ways. However, the carrier can usually change its path. It has a plane that can search more efficiently, and we're sure that a sailor in trouble would rather see an SA-53 hovering above and dropping a search and rescue swimmer than 100 kilotons of steel coming down on him. We can add a little more information to the idea of man overboard that we talked about in the first half of the video. Many people who were in the Navy said they stood aft lookout watch while the ship was moving. This watch station is also called the man overboard watch because they were on the fantail and probably had a better view. Dan Tanhill, a former third-class machinery repairman in the U.S. Navy, says that he was more likely than anyone else on the ship to see a man in the water. When I was on aft lookout, I was on a 4,100-ton ship called the U.S. Samuel B. Roberts, no higher honor. This is about 20th the size of a carrier. At night, the steady churning of the prop wash and the exhaust of two Detroit diesel 16s and one Element 2500 gas turbine drowned out all other sounds. The sea itself was the darkest black you can imagine, except when the stern light came on. If someone had fallen overboard at night, I wouldn't have heard a splash, and the only way I would have known was if the prop wash had turned blood red. He tells them not to go over the edge. The Anderson churn, also called the single churn, is another move that is often done as soon as someone has gone overboard and into the water. It's usually done to get the victims back as quickly as possible. This turn is taken when the goal is still in sight. The Williamson turn that was talked about earlier in the video might be the best choice because getting back to the starting point will take longer even if you choose the best option. In the case of a man falling overboard on a sailboat, the rapid turn or quick turn is the best standard move for sailing ships, when there aren't many people on board or when the ship is moving. The best way to keep injuries from happening is to always move the vessel up by the person. It's also important to remember that the boat's engine should be turned off when the person is well in front of the blades. Do you like it? Please tell us what you think in the part below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and useful videos.